Good afternoon. So I'd like to start with a question. Can you raise your hand if you are data scientists or engineers working directly with data? Good. And can you raise the other hand if you really enjoyed the conference and you'd like to see more of this? Good. And now can you raise both hands and you are awake? It's the last session of the afternoon. I wanted to get you a little bit moving. Yes? Excellent. So I'm going to talk to you about big data for 2017 and why it matters. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, just to position what I'm going to talk about and what's my perspective on big data. So I've lived and worked in 6 countries. I've lived in New York, in London, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Tokyo. I've always worked with data in e-commerce, product management, in finance, consulting, loyalty. I work for very large organizations and very small startups as well. So my perspective of big data, it's around the problem that it solves. Now that I'm in Tokyo, I'm working more around data, the point of origin of data. And most of the conference today has been around the tools, the solutions, the enablers that help us work with data. Now, I want to close today giving you the vision and inspiring you on the possibilities of all the technologies that help us bring these technologies into reality in a big, scalable, and big, successful commercial way. So I'll start by positioning big data not just as a data science technology, but as a business technology trend that sits in between marketing, IT, and business intelligence. And yes, we talk a lot about data cleansing and engineering and the origin of how all the work to get big data ready for the solution. But I haven't heard enough about what is the problem that we are trying to solve, or how we are going to apply these solutions into the real world. Because at the end of the day, if we want to make it a very successful business case, it has to be commercially viable. It has to be scalable. And I think we've heard this conversation from our colleagues from the MIT Media Lab. Remember the conversations about the Lego and how a successful innovation is an innovation that is able to scale, to grow. So I'm going to talk to you today about 4 key points. So at the end of my presentation today, I'd like you to remember 4 key points. The first is, why is big data now finally approachable? The second point will be how we can use this big data to understand better consumers and to create better products. The third point, I'm going to show you examples of companies that are successfully using big data products for commercially available solutions today. Not in 5 years, not in 10 years, today. They are making it viable. And then I will conclude with 3 key points on how to implement it in your companies. Because it's very easy to see the future. It's very easy to see that this is coming, but it's very difficult to implement it inside your organization. So if we want to understand why big data is finally a possibility in 2017, we need to take one step back and understand that there are 18 billion connected devices by 2018. And IoT is the largest growth category. If you look at machine-to-machine connections, they will be doubling from 2016 to 2020. So just imagine the amount of data that is going to be created in the coming years. So connected devices are going to create 2.5 quintillion bytes. I mean, this is 1 and 18 zeros. It's an astonishing amount of data. But for the first time, big data clouds are ready for that. The devices are coming, are growing exponentially, but the cloud is ready. Traditionally, companies had big challenges with space. I remember 15, 17 years ago, running out of space, massive crisis, running to buy EMC, big storage machines, $5 million, massive capital investment for the organization. Today, that's not the case. Today, the cloud is there to scale our needs as we grow. So IT capital investment and tight deployment are not corporate constraints. And this is a very important point, because when you want to present a case for a big data solution in your company, this is not an issue today. You can start with very small deployments. You can scale them. It doesn't have to mean $10 million upfront deployment. If you have $10 million, that's always better, but it's not going to be a constraint. The second point is that data lakes are making corporations it's possible finally to make use of all different types of information. So companies always had data fragmented across different silos. And this happens everywhere. All countries in the world have data from POS data, from e-commerce data, media, all kinds of different types. Voice of the customer. Data comes into the organization from many different unstructured points. It's always been extremely difficult to make sense of all of it at the same time. But now, the technology is there. So this is the second key enabler for companies in order to make sense of their data. The third key enabler is deep learning. So we have all these devices, we have the storage opportunity, and then we can make sense of all the data. But if we cannot really get insights out of it, it's extremely difficult. So this has been the key point of most of the conference. But I want to take it into the next stage. It's great that now we have new open source programming frameworks that allow us the processing and storage of extremely large data sets. But what's the use case? We still have to find the right use case for each solution. So we know that we have the right enablers. Now we need to find the key reasons to make that a scalable business model for the organization. So just to summarize, the new technologies that are now enabling big data are the cloud services, 18 billion new devices, 2.5 quintillion bytes. This is absolutely massive. The ability to extract value, aggregating multiple data sources, and the advanced analytics tools to make sense and understand this big data. Now it's all available as a service. This is a dream come true. Just 10 years ago, it was absolutely impossible. Even 2 years ago, it was a massive undertaking. So what are the opportunities? What do we do with this new wonderful toy, right? So I'd like to bring you an idea around marketing, consumer behavior. So big data marketing insights, it's going to enable higher consumer relevance. And another, when we look at analytics, we are typically looking more at the reporting side of the finance world. But how about consumers? They carry multiple devices. They are data rich. Suddenly, we might be able to reach them at the right time with the right message. And this could revolutionize the world of advertising and consumer products. So the 3 key points that we're going to talk about are understanding consumers, data sharing, and the localization tools. When we talk about understanding consumers, think about what consumers do today. They use multiple devices at different times of the day. So maybe at 8 in the morning, I'm commuting to work, and I'm watching a video on my phone. Maybe at 12, I'm having my lunch, I'm watching a cooking show. In the afternoon, maybe I'm having a break, I'm watching something else on a tablet. In the afternoon, maybe I'm cooking at home. I want to see a recipe, I want to see a cooking show. And at 9 p.m., sitting with the family, maybe watching a Netflix show. So how are companies identifying me as one consumer instead of 5, 6 different consumers. Every different touch point is generating data. All this data gets into the data centers, gets allocated to different cookies, to different data sets. So the future is that as purchasing behavior evolves across the multiple channels and devices, the agencies and brands are trying to replace the old cookie-based system with the new ad tech for smarter, unique identifiers. So this is something that only the power of big data and the power of analytics are giving us today. And advertising technology can help us break the black box of advertising. So today, both Google and Facebook have about 90% of the online digital space because they have closed, fenced gardens. And that is true for many other industries as well. We were talking before about the black boxes. Just imagine that we can make sense of data in a way that allows us to break the black boxes. The opportunities at scale are massive. Another key point is that using big data for ad targeting is now a possibility. And I'll show you more examples of this later on. So advertising networks are starting to leverage the power of big data, and they are aggregating data from multiple sources and enriching it, including telco and credit card data. So we've talked about how telcos have the problem of growing in terms of the data that they see passing through, but the revenues are flat because the bailings are still around the data services. They're not including the data services. This is one of the areas that big data analytics can open these closed networks and help serve ads into the right people at the right time. A little bit more clear on that. So having location data from telco, from Wi-Fi, and from beacons can help us enrich this consumer behavior and help identify the right segments for the right ad targeting. So you're all familiar with area marketing. So area marketing is essentially big data layered on top of consumer data, analytics, demographics, and it's extremely useful. And it will be even better when we help de-anonymize it safely with the use of consumer location information. There are some very interesting cases of agencies that are working, de-anonymizing, and helping companies identify the right consumer. And this is all about understanding how people are using data across many different touch points. So big data will increase our understanding of consumer journeys, and this is one of the key concerns of every single organization out there. We've heard before how retailers are being disintermediated because others are taking their space. If they didn't do their job well on e-commerce, they found that they lost touch with their consumers. JCPenney, Macy's is shutting down stores as well. There are lots of different retailers, in the US especially, that are getting in trouble because they haven't done their homework in terms of leveraging the relationships with their consumers and reaching them at the right time with the right message. So the key points to summarize this point are around consumer identification capabilities, opening new ad networks, and area marketing analysis. But let me give you some examples of how this works in practice. Because at the end of the day, if you want to take big data analytics into a scalable commercial space, we have to work with the agencies and the brands to make it a possibility, not just one of the specific data science areas into the analytics space in the organization. So this is an example of Spotify. So Spotify launched in Japan just a few months ago. Who has Spotify here? Raise your hand. Fantastic. So I don't know if you remember this campaign. This campaign ran in 14 countries this Christmas. So they leveraged their big data to create a very touching, very engaging campaign. Let me tell you a little bit more about this. So this is a best practice case from Spotify using big data. And this is something which is very innovative. So Spotify wanted to leverage the holidays to create a message that celebrated the user, the famous, the best music of the year, but also they wanted to speak directly to the consumer, something that was very relatable, not just a big campaign. So you can read the examples. Dear person in LA who listened to the Forever Alone playlist for 4 hours on Valentine's Day, are you okay? And it says, thanks, 2016, it's been weird. So it was a funny way of closing 2016 with a funny message that relates directly to the consumers. So Spotify has about 200 data scientists. It's a very data-driven organization. They are music streaming on demand. They are launched in, I believe, more than 14 countries. They launched Japan just before Christmas. So the campaign didn't run here because they didn't have enough data to run it yet in Japan. But this was extremely successful. It ran on digital ads, out-of-home, billboards, and other channels. They exceeded all their expectations in terms of consumers connecting with the brand, activations, and new users as well. So this shows a brand that understands what their consumers are doing with the product. So just imagine that in your companies, you were able to touch consumers in this way, using it for marketing. So this is a great case of big data and analytics leverage for marketing. Obviously, they use anonymized data. And I hope they don't put my playlist up here anytime soon. But this is an interesting case of crunching the data from many different sources to generate something that connects with your customer and builds strong brand loyalty. I'll give you another example of big data. So who knows the Snapchat? I suppose not that many people? So Snapchat is more of a teenager product. It deletes the message that you send after a few seconds. You can set how much time that picture or that message is alive. So it's extremely popular with millennials and younger. But what they are doing is quite innovative. They are using Oracle to track what their consumers are doing in the real world, and then targeting them with ads in the digital world. So they are really connecting what's happening with data outside and creating this single customer touch point that makes it extremely meaningful. And remember that all the advertising until this point has been either out for everybody, mass media, ATL, above the line, or targeted with cookies, subscriptions, or basically building your profile and collecting as much as they can from you. So every time you click like on Facebook, that gets stuck. So if every time you share something on Facebook, that gets into your profile. So they know extremely well the things that you like, the things that you don't like, the things that you value. And this is how they serve you advertising. So Snapchat, from day one, said they don't want to do that, in part because they try to keep privacy as part of the key value propositions in the system. So what they're doing is trying to eliminate marketing waste by allowing them to reach an audience that visits movie theaters. So in this partnership, they partner with a company that tracks the movie tickets purchased through a loyalty program, and they match that with Snapchat. And they allow those brands to target consumers inside Snapchat. And that can only be done with big data analytics. I mean, this is something which is impossible for any agency or for any ad-serving system to do on a real-time basis. So this is opening to new, huge opportunities in markets that are very powerful. I suppose LinkedIn. Yes, everybody has LinkedIn, mostly. I know it's not huge in Japan, but still. So LinkedIn is generating a new ad ecosystem model. So typically, LinkedIn has now about nearly 500 million customers. So it's a massive player in the business world. It was acquired by Microsoft by, I believe, $23 billion. So what they are doing is they are researching the behavior, analyzing the segments by job title, locations, and skills of all the public information that we post on LinkedIn, and then they are making this available through a third-party company, because this way it's better optimized and it has better compliance. And they are allowing them to target them customers with native advertising. So they're going to generate an extremely smart tool that will allow advertisers to target each of you specifically by the things that you like, that you don't like, by the things that are meaningful to you in the business context. So just imagine how powerful that is. And they've done this with in-feed content in real time. And this can only be done, again, with big data analytics tools, which are it was impossible just 2-3 years ago. But I'd like to tell you also about success factors. Because every time I go to a conference, I'm always very excited and inspired. But then I go back and I think, how can this work for me? Especially, maybe you'll go back to your organizations and you'll talk to your teams, and they'll say, yes, but maybe we think different here, or maybe we are organized in a different way, or we have a different focus. Well, I'm going to give you 3 ideas that might help you bring big data to success in your organizations today. So the first one is organizational alignment. And because big data is not just owned by data scientists, big data needs to fit in the right culture of the organization. So if you are in a retail organization, it might fit naturally within marketing. If you're in a finance organization, it will fit maybe into business intelligence. If you're a software company, it might come from a different side, maybe from product development. So you need to decide who is going to lead that, or whether you want to have a matrix business intelligence team that owns the big data space and services the organization. And I'm talking about different organizational models. Some organizations are structured in very vertical ways. Others are more horizontal. There are big differences between how organizations in the US are organized in a hierarchy model. In Europe, in the North, they tend to be more functional-driven, more horizontal, more flat. In Japan, it depends across different industries. So you need to see how it fits. Because if it's just an IT project and it's not well understood by the product managers or by the sales teams, it's not going to fail. It's going to be one of these things that it takes more and more and more time, and it's really not embraced by the organization. So setting it in the right context for your organization, it's very important. The second point is data quality and compliance. And we've been talking about extensively about data quality and compliance. These are 2 things that are just not negotiable. If you don't follow the rules, you're not going to have a business. And that goes for data privacy. It goes for who manages the data, who has access, how is it managed, what's the process, how is it acquired, ingested, cleaned, and everything end to end. You have to have extremely solid compliance. And the last one is you need to add your secret sauce. You need to add your expertise. Because in a few years, every single organization will have their own data lake. Think about it. If we add government information plus weather information plus public information and any other data sets that are available for purchase, all the data lakes will end up looking exactly the same. So how are you going to differentiate your organization? And this is with your own expertise. You need to add your unique data set, your unique point of view of the industry, of the market, of the product, of the customers, and make sure that you're leveraging, that you have a special point of view, that you add it in the right way to your data lake, and that you make a very powerful proposition of that data. So just to summarize, I want to leave you with corporations with big data projects are more likely to succeed when they have an organizational alignment that fits their corporate culture, when they have a strong data quality and compliance, and when they add their secret sauce expertise to their own data lake. And that's all I wanted to share with you. I think we will not be taking questions at this time, but if you want to send a question to my Twitter or check it out later, I'm very happy to answer questions later. Thank you very much.